Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast today. It's so nice to be here with y'all. And I wanted to talk about something that happened this morning, actually. So, for those of you who do not know, 2 weeks before my 40th birthday, I blew out my knee and I couldn't walk. And I had to learn how to walk again at 40 years old. It was a very intense initiation into the 40th portal. So if anyone understands those more brutal initiations and the transformation and reinvention that comes from it, it's your girl. And one of the things that I was really into before my injury was spin. I love spin classes, and I actually cracked the code this morning as to why I love them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But when the injury happened, because of the way my knee dislocated and also just like the intense like physical therapy journey, it was a year of physical therapy just to kind of get back to basics. And then it was a year of like building back strength and building back the muscles that had atrophied and, finding ways to navigate the world in my body in a way that I felt safe in again, because after that injury happened, I felt so unsafe in my body. I felt like my body had betrayed me. I historically have had, I'd say, a pretty decent relationship with my body and with movement and fitness. And so to have an injury like this and the way that it happened was just so ridiculous. And it was one of those things that when it happened and I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was definitely like scheduled in the fucking stars. That like it's just so comical. Like we were on a boat and we were supposed to do a micro dose of MDMA, and instead we got macro dosed. And so we were all feeling pretty good and we're dancing at the front of the boat, and this girl that we don't know, she's a friend of one of our guy friends, and all the women there don't know who this chick is. She's at the front of the boat, she's dancing, and she's up on this ledge, and she keeps like nagging at me. I was like, come dance up here, like come up here, dance with me, come up here, dance with me. And I keep saying no, 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 no. She does not take no for an answer. As you can tell, there's like layers to all of this. And it got to a point where I was like, fuck, okay, I'll just get up on the ledge and maybe that will make her shut up. And I can just like be in my high and have a good time. And as I step up onto the ledge, my knee blows out. And literally my knee is hanging. Like it's dislocated. It's floating. And it stays like that for over a day. Brutal. And because we have been macrodosed, I don't feel anything aside from like I know something's really wrong. And it's such a weird sensation of being, if you've ever done MDMA, like it's like this lovey-dovey, like everything feels amazing and there's like your heart's open. And so to have that feeling contrasting with there's something really, really wrong was wild. And, a big part of that lesson as I've, taken it apart over the years is the exact spot where I will abandon myself to make it more convenient for another person, to get someone to stop because they just won't honor the no. And so I got to see on the map where I was in relationship to all of that. And it was really sobering to see that, I would rather, do this thing and step up there and like abandon myself. I didn't want to be up on the ledge, but I was willing to go against what was true for me in order to get this chick that I don't even fucking know to stop asking. And there are a million other moves I could have made. I could have left the front of the boat and gone to the back of the boat. I could have gone inside the boat. I could have just continued to ignore her. I could have been really intense with my no and maybe been a little bit more confrontational. Like, there are so many different ways I could have played it, but that's how I played it. And it gave me a first class look at my patterns. And that was really valuable. Like, as much as that initiation was fucking brutal, to have that insight going into a new decade and then cleaning it up and saying, okay, we aren't going to do that anymore. And we're going to watch that spot, because we get immediately bitch slapped from the universe in a pretty serious way when we abandon ourselves. Like, that was the big lesson there of there's always been a cost to self-abandonment, but now the cost is too high. Like, we're playing at a much higher level, work-wise, life-wise, to be running these types of patterns, especially in that type of way. So, very valuable lesson. And obviously there were additional lessons post-injury of like finding a new pace that contradicted my usual pace. Like, I'm a manifesting generator. I make shit happen very, very quickly, and then I take downtime, and then I recharge my batteries, and then I go again. And I wasn't able to do that, which was really, really hard. And all of the things that I took for granted that I do on a regular basis, I could no longer do. Like, I couldn't even take my garbage out or my recycle out or go get groceries. And so it forced me into this place of learning a masterclass in reception and being taken care of. Because my whole thing is I take care of people. Like, I want to leave people feeling taken care of and leaving people better off. And I have this very loving, warm, caretaking energy to me. And it comes out in my community. It comes out in my work. And I really do love that about myself. And again, I needed to be initiated in the flip side of it, which is reception. Like, you can't be giving, and then have all of your ports for reception closed off. And this injury showed me like what the actual ratio of giving to reception really was for me at that chapter of my life. And it did force me to be vulnerable, ask for help, and then be receptive to that help. And as painful as the entire experience was physically, emotionally and relationally, it was dropping in these core nutrients that I had always needed, but didn't know that I could receive. And it's helped me balance that out in my life in the coming years since the injury happened. And, you know, one of the things that drastically changed was my relationship to movement, because the things that I would normally do, legree, spin, and dance, I could no longer do. And so it was this very slow and steady build back. So the first thing that happened was I got cleared to go back to the gym and ride the bike at the gym, and that was it. And then I got cleared to do a little bit more weight training, and then I got cleared to go back to legree. And once my whole goal with myself was 1 year post-injury, I was going back to legree, because that workout for me is really tied to my mental and emotional health. Like, I really love it. I'm challenged by it. I notice results from it. I just enjoy the entire culture of legree. The women that I've met through legree, the teachers that I've met are just all a fucking vibe. And I love it. I love it. And so it was my goal. I'm like, 1 year post injury, I'm back on that megaformer. And I was. And that was such a huge accomplishment. And so I kind of stayed with Legree for that year. And then the next one, I was like, okay, I'm ready to like start considering the possibility of dance again. And I went back to dance. And for the last year, I've done 2 terms of dance. Each of them has come with a full performance, a full weekend show, being in heels, dancing, like lots of knee drops, like things that I would have been terrified to do because of my injury. I now can do those things again. And the one that I hadn't gone back to yet was spin. And the reason why was because I had it in my head that if you've never done spin, you've got to click into your bike. And then at the end of class, you have to unclick and you have to like push your heels out. And so the movement of doing that, it reminded me of what happened when my injury happened. So I'm sure we all know by now the body keeps the score, and these experiences are imprinted in our body and our nervous system. And so just the thought of replicating a movement that potentially could have my knee go out again terrified me. And I'm not using that word lightly. Like, I'm talking legitimate terror in my system. And I had to hold this terror with this grief because spin is one of my favorite forms of cardio. And, riding the bike at the gym is just not the same. And going for a walk or going for a run is just not the same for me, at least. And so I had to hold like this discord in my system, and trusting that when I had established enough internal safety and also reestablished enough trust with my body, that there would be a natural point where it would feel safe and expansive and opening to revisit spin. And after my dance show last weekend and just seeing the choreography that happened in our dances and what my body had been capable of doing, I heard in my system, it's time to go back to spin. And so I told my best friend and my business partner, Christine, I'm like, I'm doing this because here's the thing, like, especially with accountability, if you keep things to yourself, you give yourself an out to not do it because no one knows. No one knows if you break your promises to yourself, if you've only made them to yourself. But when you declare it to someone else, when you declare it to something outside of you, so whether that's a group or it's a person or a best friend or a therapist or a partner or a sibling or a parent, it doesn't matter. It just got to be another human. And when another human receives you in your declaration of, I am going to do this thing, it holds you at a higher level of capability, and you start to relate to yourself as someone who is totally capable of following through on what you did or what you want to do. And part of that is, just not wanting to look bad. And you won't hear me play on the, good, bad, right, wrong, wanting to look good, wanting to avoid looking bad. Like, that is a paradigm that I really like to disassemble and tear apart in my life. However, in this one little instance, it is one of the underlying motivating factors of like, well, I don't want to have to go back to her and tell her that I didn't do it, because then she's going to ask me why. And then I'm going to have to go into this whole conversation about why I didn't do it when I could just do it. And so she's away in Hawaii right now. And I said to her, I was like, this week I'm going back. I don't know what day I'm going back, because at that time I did not know what day I was going to go back. I just knew that I was going to. And so I sat with it for a few days and I looked at the schedule. Like I had the schedule pulled up on my computer, just looking at it, like kind of going through who was teaching, the styles of class that were happening. And I knew that it was something that I just needed to press go on. And so a few days ago, I booked my class for this morning and, felt largely settled about it, but also this energy of nervousness because I was still not totally sure how my knee was going to respond. And that fear and that terror was still in there. So much so that last night I could not sleep. This usually happens to me when I have an early flight. I have a hard time sleeping and I will wake up regularly thinking that I've missed my alarm, even though I've set 2 alarms. And I knew that I needed to set 2 alarms today because the class was at 9:30, which I am not an early riser. So 9:30 class is not like super early for me, but it's early enough that if I were to let my, unconscious sabotagey patterns run, they would totally sleep me through my alarm and I would wake up at like 9:55. Even though most days I'm waking up around 8:30. So I already knew that I needed to like set myself up for success by setting 2 alarms, and that should let my system kind of calm down. Like we've got 2 alarms, you're going to be golden. You're going to wake up in time. You're going to eat something and then you're going to walk up there. And I had to walk myself through this process in my head before I went to sleep. And then I kept waking up throughout the night thinking that I had slept through my alarm, even though I'm waking up and it's still dark outside. So I know that I haven't, but I could still feel like this panic in my system. And this is why I woke myself up a little earlier today so that I could have a slow ease into this class, that I wasn't rushed. I got to class 10 minutes early. So I had plenty of time to get set up and like get oriented in the room, get my earplugs in because it's loud as fuck. And that part never works well for me, but having earplugs makes it fine. And really set up in the room. And the class was great. I loved it. And in the middle of class, and what I realized that I love about spin so much is like the syncing that happens when everybody catches the rhythm and they're moving in tandem together. And what I noticed happen in the room was my nervous system was regulating in real time because of the rhythmic movement, first of all, and also doing the rhythmic movement in community. So there's this co-regulation that happens. And I was like, no wonder I have been obsessed with spin for so long, because it was the thing that was regulating my nervous system. And so to be able to come back to it today, have these insights, have these realizations, walk myself, like I had to reparent myself. Like I had to imagine like these younger, terrified parts, like me holding their hand and being like, it's okay. I've got you. I've got us. And it's going to be okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. I'll handle it. And getting in the room and following through on the class and just having that experience of like the click in of everyone kind of moving in sync with each other, and like the big co-regulation that happens in that space, whether or not people are present to it or not. It's happening. And as long as you take care of what your body needs, like for me, if I didn't have the, what do you call it? Not earbuds, earplugs in, it wouldn't be such a smooth experience for me, because I would be really bothered and agitated by the sound level in the room. but I can adjust that by having the earplugs in so that it's a level that my system feels good with. And then I can just get into the rhythm and the sequence and the choreography and the movement. And like, it was so good, so good. And then the moment class is over, we got to unclick from the bike. And like the thing that I had built up in my head, and it was like this huge thing, and like, oh my God, this is such a big deal. And then it just like clicked out. And like my ankle barely moved, meaning my knee did not move. And I'm like, oh my God, I literally spent 2 years being terrified of that moment. And it was so minuscule. It was nothing, but it was only that minuscule and nothing because I waited until I was truly ready. And I think this is an important thing to land, is your system is intelligent. Even when it looks like you're sabotaging yourself, what if you were actually like following a greater intelligence, that there was something that you need prior to being able to fulfill on that thing, that you are walking yourself through, so that when you get to that point where you can actually show up to the thing, you can do it and do yourself proud. Because I couldn't have been in that room before I was in that room. I couldn't have done today before I did today. Today was the day I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to do that. And this is a spot where I am really strong with myself, is that I don't really fall into a lot of mental traps of, oh, what could have been, what should have been, I should have done this, blah, 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 blah. Like I've cut that shit out a long time ago. And instead I roll with a frame that is more self-honoring, that, you know, I'm going to show up and do this thing when it's true. And I have to be really, really honest with myself in order to run that frame. Because if I were to feel the truth in that moment of like, okay, now is it's go time, and I just push that to the side, that's where we get caught in the swamp. That's where we kind of get pulled in this more shadowy undertow, because we know that we are actually ready for liftoff and we are not putting ourselves in the position for liftoff. At that point, we're really like holding ourselves back. So it does require quite a bit of self-honesty. It does require a lot of embodiment, meaning you are in your body and you are very familiar with the terrain of your body, the terrain of your emotional body, and how those two intersect. So what are the signals and cues that your emotional body gives? What are the signals and cues that your physical body gives? What is the communication between the two? What are the sensations, the somatic sensations that you're experiencing? What do those trigger in your mind? And then how does that, program that gets triggered in your mind, how does that impact your emotional body? And then how does that emotional response impact your physical body? Like, it's this entire ecosystem. And most people are not relating to their entire self as an ecosystem. Things are compartmentalized. And when we start looking at it like an ecosystem and really kind of getting fine-tuned in these spots and getting really well acquainted and intimately acquainted with these parts of ourselves, we can start designing our life in a way that really works for our human, instead of following a template that works for somebody else's body or someone else's life, or the path that the conventional masses walk, that in my opinion is probably not great for anybody. And you get to sidestep all of that and actually carve out a pathway that works for you. And when you feel that thread of truth of like, okay, it's time to act on this thing, you have the fortitude and self-trust to be able to do that. And so it's been a slow process for me. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with like building back the stability brick by brick and moment by moment, step by step. Because to land here today and have these insights, not only about like how important spin is for my nervous system regulation, but also my joy and my fulfillment. And, you know, it's that final block that kind of clicked into place of like, okay, I think we've done like the full scope of this initiation that injury was all about. And post spin, I'm like, you know what? What's the next true thing? This is a big question I ask myself all the time. Like, what's the next true thing? And I really wanted this green smoothie from Whole Foods that I'm obsessed with. So I walked up there, got it. What's the next true thing? I want a coffee and a breakfast sandwich from this really great coffee place across the street. I go and do that. What's the next true thing? Do I stay or do I walk home with it? I stay. And so I stay and I eat it and I have like this cute little interaction with this old man sitting next to me who's just so sweet and precious. And what's the next true thing? It's time to walk home. Okay, what's the next true thing? Oh, we got to go pick up our microdoses. Okay, go do that. What's the next true thing? We want to walk on the side of the street that's sunny. And so I'm walking down the street and I run into one of my best friends and he is with someone. And we get into a conversation about creativity and songwriting and writing. She's a songwriter, she's a musician. And he's like, I think the two of you needed to meet today because I think the two of you need to collaborate. And I mean, there's a whole world of shit that's been going on behind the scenes with music and creativity and that whole world for me. And it's been quite disorienting for the last few months. So to have this moment of like, I just keep following the next true thing, and then it literally collides me with an opportunity to pivot musically and also explore a new connection with someone who likes to publish the same type of music that I like to write. And her vibe was 20 out of 10. I was like, yes, we're going to be friends. I can tell immediately. Sometimes it takes a little while for me to warm up to people. And then other times it's like instant. And she was one of those instant connections. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And so all that to say, you know, it's really important to honor the pace of your life and the pace of the lessons that are being brought to you, so that you can digest them fully and completely, which means you can integrate the wisdom. And when you follow the thread of that true moment of like, okay, now is the time. Now is the time to go to spin. And then you keep following that sequence. And for you, it'll be something different. You know, maybe it's spin, maybe it's not spin, maybe it's pottery class. I don't know. I don't know what the thing is for you that you're being called back to. You know, the thing that brings you joy, the thing that nourishes you. But when you follow the call and then you keep asking yourself, okay, what is the next true thing? And you have to listen. And this is why embodiment is so important. Because if you live your life in your head, you are not going to be able to hear the intelligence of your intuition, because it's a much softer voice. It doesn't yell at you. It's not a drill sergeant. You know, it's this quiet knowing in your body. And the more connected you are in your body and to your emotional system, and this is why we do this foundational work in Initiated. We clear those emotional and energetic pipes so that you can restructure and rebuild your relationship to yourself, but also build in to the ways in which you are in the world, the foundations of relational mastery, so that you can follow that thread of truth inside of every relationship you find yourself in. And that's where magic starts to open. That's where possibility opens. That's when these doors of opportunity open. I wasn't going out this morning with the intention of finding a new co-writer, but by following the thread of what was true, I was literally redirected and like set on a path to collide with my next co-writer. I didn't have to effort for that. All I had to do was arguably the harder work of, listening to the pace of my body, honoring what I need, taking care of myself, following that activation of like, now it's time to move. Now it's time to do the thing. Say yes, move towards it. You can do it. Now is the time. You are ready. And following that, and then it opens up a whole new world of possibility. Okay. So I'm going to leave that there for you today. Digest it, let it rumble around. And if this type of exploration, if this type of work is pinging in your system, I want you to head to the show notes and submit your application for Initiated, because we are going to be doing this work in a very intentional way starting in February. So there are 12 spots remaining. And if you would like to claim one of them, if you think that you are, a right fit and you are aligned with the premise of going deep and taking your time, finding your true pace, and creating relationships that really work in terms of what you desire and what you ultimately are looking for. And that's obviously the relationship with yourself first, but also your relationships, both romantic and non-romantic, with other people. And if that is the season that you are in and you are really wanting to tend to those spots and lay the foundation for relational mastery, then Initiated is your spot. And I would love to read your application and we will take it from there. So if the application is a go, then you come in, and sometimes I do an interview to suss it out just to make sure that it's the right spot for you. And that's all I have for you today, friends. I love you. Thank you for being here with me, going on this little ride today. And I will be back next week with something new. Love you. Bye.